All right, you guys. Well, welcome to week 1 of book club. Introduction chapter is what we're going to go over today. And just to kind of set the foundation for how things are going to go for those of you who haven't participated in a book club with us until now, is every week we're going to go over a chapter of either the Lifebook or the Habits of Health book. And we're going to alternate every week. So this week, obviously, we're tapping into the introduction of the Lifebook. And then next week, we will read the introduction of the Habits of Health book. So every week, essentially, you will have 2 weeks to get through a chapter. So that's kind of the cadence that we want to go through. Now, in terms of participation, the more the merrier. We don't want it to just be like a couple people who are doing all the talking. We've decided that if this group gets so large that we'll do little breakout sessions within here. That way it's like 4 to 8 people per breakout. That way everybody has the opportunity to share, but we wanted to see what the turnout was going to be like tonight before we started. And so far so good, which is really awesome. We are going to record these. So if by chance you guys miss a week for whatever reason, you'll be able to catch the replay and listen to it later. And just kind of like some housekeeping things, put yourselves on mute if you're not speaking. That way we don't hear you guys typing or doing anything else. So just kind of a good reminder of that. And then, of course, this is an awesome forum. You don't have to read the book. I mean, we want you to, but we don't want you not showing up if you haven't read one of the elements. So even if you didn't get the chance to read the introduction, please stick around and hear everybody's takeaways, because honestly, that's how we learn best, is being able to learn from each other. So with that being said, who wants to kick us off with the introduction, at least for those of you who've read it, or for some of us that have reread it many, many times now, because it is a life book, as cliche as it sounds. We'll be using this, honestly, for the rest of our lives. So what were some of your takeaways? What were some of your big aha moments? If you're feeling a little vulnerable and willing to share pieces of your story, you're welcome to do that as well. So who wants to get us started and break the ice? We're all a healthy family, people. And it's very much, I'll go for it, Erica.
I was looking when I read this week, and I was looking at what I wrote. I don't know, I guess it's almost 18 months ago now. So I was looking at the measurements that I wrote down in my life book and how much they've changed. And I forgot what those were. So I haven't measured in about 6 months. So I need to go back and measure again and see what's happening. But I was like, wow, that was me. So that was kind of an aha moment. It was a good reminder to stay the course and go on track.
Yeah, no, I love that. How far have you come, if you're willing to share?
Well, when I started program, my waist was 51 inches. And the last time I measured, I was 36, and that was in March. So I've been doing some more,
Glad.
I've been doing the 75 hard challenge, so I'm hoping that's changed. So we'll see. I'll update you next week. I need to go
Love
measure.
that. That's awesome. Who else? Who else took some takeaways from this introduction about how to utilize the life book, kind of how Dr. Anderson sets the foundation of it?
Okay, I'll just go and say something. I really relate to the rocks, pebbles, and sand story. And so every time I read that, it just makes me remember that there's room for more, right? You can always get that jar filled up, or they have to actually refill your cup or whatever it is. But one of those things is just making sure that you're finding the spaces between where the rocks and the pebbles all fit together. And it just helps me to remember that it doesn't have to be so overwhelming for myself.
Yeah. So digging into that a little bit, sure. I'm curious, like, how do you see that in like your health journey? How have you applied it?
Well, of course you would do this to me. No, that's what you're good at. I would say that in the last couple months, I've really pulled away from my journey so much and have found that the weight creeps back on, and that I haven't been as dedicated to myself. I've let other things take over life. And so just knowing that it's not hard to get back into that structure, and just knowing that there is still room for me, and there's a place for me, and I have to take care of myself before I really take care of everybody else. Because if I'm not taking care of myself, how can I take care of my clients?
What's this meeting about?
Element
really
one in the
good.
Lifebook.
I would love
Who
to
else?
add on that too. I noticed that when I just trying to stay on the first week of the 5-in-1, I couldn't do it and take on I noticed how many other people's problems I am solving in my life. And I'm like, I don't need, these are grown adults in some cases, or I don't need to be solving their problems. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do both. And I had to choose myself. And it was very eye-opening.
That's a huge takeaway, Rochelle. Thank you for sharing. I think there's a lot of us in that boat. And I won't say this doesn't apply to males, but I think especially those of us who are moms, we tend to put ourselves on the back burner, and then everybody else becomes a focus before ourselves.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good one. Who else?
I would like to say one of the things I underlined it today in my life book. I remember reading this back in April, but it says your journey will not go perfectly. It will be full of challenges and setbacks, but they're all part of the life-changing journey. And that's something that I have to keep reminding myself because I've let stress kind of overrule everything. And even going on vacation this weekend, I did like 95% on task with my journey. I did enjoy some ice cream, but other than that, I really stuck to plan and was very active the entire time. So it was wonderful to realize that you can just jump right back into this, and that we are filling that jar with the different tasks and different adventures that we do throughout life. And instead of just being like, I'm stabbing this tire because all my other ones are going flat, it's nope, we're going to get back on it and we're going to keep going instead of just throwing it all away.
And celebrating those things too, right? Like in my head, like the little pebbles are those little things that maybe you haven't been able to do in the past that you can do now, like chase the kids around the campsite.
Like go swimming in a swimming suit and not care if people see me.
Yeah.
That was huge. And it's a bathing suit I bought back in June that was tight. And it fit perfect. So I was just like, oh, this is awesome. So I didn't care if anybody saw me at this particular pool.
That is so awesome. And you're right. Like it's not a straight line from A to Z. In fact, it's kind of like when I envision the pebbles, I envision them being like these jagged, squiggly lines. And somebody shared that in the group not too long ago, where like most people think their health journey from A to Z is like this perfect line, when indeed it's like all over the place, but it's still going uphill. So that's a great takeaway. Who else? What'd you guys get from this introduction?
Hey, Cindy. So
Yeah,
I
go for it.
really liked like that it's a science experiment and it's unique to everybody, because my story is not your story and the neighbor's story is not any of our stories either. So that was one of my huge takeaways.
I feel like we should like to say that over and over and over again, because I think we're all guilty of comparing ourselves to everybody else's journey, both in the group and outside of the group of people we know. So yeah, I feel like that should be emphasized almost on a regular basis.
Yeah, I like that it encompasses more than just the weight loss, because I don't know about everybody else, but I've done just about any program I can think about, and it comes back because I haven't like really learned the underlining things that I need to learn to keep the weight off. So and I like that the weight loss, while is huge, it's just a part of the whole learning to have a different mindset, have a different relationship with yourself. I am also one of those people that put everything last. I always did everything for everybody else first and worried if I was doing enough for them, but then I didn't have enough for me. And so it's kind of like one of those eye-opener mindset shifts that happens.
That's a good one. It's all those micro habits. And it's not just about having a healthy body because I mean, I tell people all the time, as cliche as this sounds, like every program out there works. And I truly believe that. But I feel like this is the only one that touches on every single aspect of our life to get healthy. Because if it's just kind of like off kilter, like if our mental health is off kilter, odds are our physical health is going to be too. So I love that you shared that, Lisa. Thank you. Who else? Any other takeaways?
I guess I'll go. This exercise and introduction really made me realize how much value I've been putting to my work life and how much that's been consuming pretty much everything else. And so like I realized the only thing that I felt like was amazing was my job. And that I feel like has impacted other parts of my life. And so that's something I will be working on, trying to find the balance better than just focusing on it entirely.
That can be hard to do, especially for some folks. And I relate to that a lot, Sarah, because could be a workaholic. At least I was in my corporate job before coaching. It's what more can I do? I felt I got my I guess my gratification out of being able to take on more work and the extra kudos at work. Meanwhile, the balance at home was like non-existent. So that's a great one. For those of you that read The Element, was anybody surprised on page 23 when he talks about kind of the power of journaling and why he wants this to be an interactive journal and write things down? Is anyone avoiding writing in their journal? I'm curious.
Let me speak for those avoiders a little bit, because as I open my journal, I started my weight loss journey 3 years ago. And I can still see, I think I made it through a couple of pages before I put this thing in the corner and didn't take it seriously. I finally came back around to it like months later. So first of all, kudos to everyone on here who jumped on this book club, because I can tell you right now, the Lifebook is key to your success and that you will get there. As I read my story, it says that I'm 41 years old. It says I weigh 286 pounds. It says that I have high blood pressure and that I'm on 3 medications for that. It says that I'm pre-diabetic and that I'm giving myself a shot in my stomach every day for that. It says that I have high cholesterol and I was recently put on a statin. And to see that now, and to be around 220 and to not be on any medications at all, and to just have a completely different lifestyle because of what this Lifebook did. So I just wanted to put that in there, that it's kind of amazing to look back a little bit. And I know that some of you are probably new and starting out. So do not skip over this stuff and take it seriously and record what you're doing, because I didn't have a straight line either. And it took some of those zigzags before I started realizing the behavioral side of things was really important to my long-term success. So I just wanted to point that out, having been someone who's been around, and I'm going through the Lifebook again. Like, I try to go through it over and over. Dr. A even says in here in the beginning, he'd love to see this on our nightstand and us checking back into it, because there's always something new that we can learn. So that's all.
Love that. Thanks, Eric. And it's not just that's all. That's really powerful. Just proof of like what your story can do. And you guys, the best part is being able to reflect. I think we are always our worst critics, and we always focus on the things we're not doing or the things we're not doing well versus all the accomplishments we've made. And being able to write these things down and celebrate those little wins is huge. And that's what's going to keep that momentum going. So I love that. Thanks, Eric. Anyone else? Was anyone surprised as they were going through and filling out their scores for every area, whether they're mental health or anything else? Were there things that stood out to you that kind of surprised you, or maybe that you didn't even think were related to your health journey? I could say, an example for me is like page 31, as I was scoring myself with like spiritual time, community service, and hobbies and fun. I'm like, wow, those are like a lot lower than I thought they were. Not to say I don't want to do those things, but it goes back to what Sarah was saying, where sometimes other areas of our life just kind of take precedence. So having to put a score in each of these was really eye-opening for me. Was that eye-opening to anyone else?
Not really. I was kind of like just like in a really dark state. So pretty much scored low on everything because that's kind of like my mental state at that time. I would say if I looked at it then when I started in March and now, my scores would be different. But the actual overall scoring myself, no, I was pretty aware of where I was in that at that point.
That's good. I like that. Anyone have to rescore themselves? I heard someone in the past tell me they had to go and erase their answers because they weren't totally honest in here the first go round. Did anyone else experience that as maybe you've gone back to reread it?
I totally just did that today. I was kind of finishing this up, and again, I had been through this a couple different times just throughout my journey, which started almost 3 years ago. But I was looking at specifically like my mental health, and I was thinking back to like when I first took this test, and I was like, I was in one of those dark spots and I was avoiding telling the truth to myself. And that really hit me hard today because I'm really grateful that I'm not in that same spot. But I was like, that was not the case. Like, I gave myself sixes in this area where I was like, definitely a two, definitely a two. And so it just really gave me an opportunity to reflect. And I think just to piggyback off of what Eric said with just the value in doing this and actually using this tool is like, and kind of what Dr. A was saying that Cindy, you mentioned is there's just power in putting pen to paper. There's something that just causes you to come to terms with your reality and see it written there and be able to reflect on it. That is super powerful. So definitely don't skip that, even if you kind of think you know where you're at, but take time to look it back over and definitely be honest with yourself and reevaluate.
Thank you for sharing, Ashley. Is there anyone who really struggles getting in their life book or finding time to get in their life book that can maybe use some tips for those of us who've been around the block a few times?
I think that's me. I mean, I started the last week of June, and this is the first time I've opened it. And I think it's all about, again, I mean, just having the young kids around, and then I'm a stay-at-home mom right now. So I just feel like, I don't know, I guess I feel selfish when I'm doing stuff for me because I'm supposed to be, you know, like the house is supposed to be clean and like things are supposed to be done and they're not. And I think it's impossible to keep up on it, but I almost feel guilty and selfish for putting too much time on myself, which is ridiculous because if the mama's not happy, nobody's happy. And I think that really is a true statement. But yeah, I definitely am one of those.
Who has tips? I know there's stay-at-home mamas in this group and on this call. Who has some tips for Rochelle?
I can offer a couple tips. Well, I won't take them all because I'm sure somebody else has value, but make the time anyways, because like you said, if the mama's not well, nobody is well. And even 5 minutes goes a really long way. So for myself, I realized that I tried to give myself the end of the day after everybody else was done. And that was the worst part of me.
Right.
And so I started getting up early, and I now read, whether it's the life book or another personal development book, in the morning. That's the first thing I do. So I now give myself the best part of me. And I find that what I give to everyone around me is also leveled up, which is kind of funny. So I would say set that time aside for yourself, because you're going to give better to those that you love.
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome.
Great tip, Anna. Thank you. Anyone else have tips that have, even if for you who have
Well,
like
I'm not a
struggled getting
stay-home
in?
mom,
You're-
but I am a stay-home dad. So.
Go for it, Eric.
Just generally for anybody, like just treat. I just suggest for all of us, like treat the reading just like you do every other healthy habit you're working on.
Yeah.
You're setting habits for how you eat and how you drink, and hopefully starting to realize that healthy sleep plays into there. Well, the reading is just another aspect of that. So I always suggest when folks are struggling with it, attach it to a habit you already have. For me, it's just like brushing teeth. Like, I'm going to brush my teeth every morning, every afternoon. Like, I just attach it to that and make that my habit cue. And then put zero pressure on yourself for how much you're going to accomplish, because that's where we go sideways with our habits. Even saying, hey, I'm going to read for 5 minutes. There's days where you don't have 5 minutes. Life is nuts. So just make yourself a habit of opening the book, seeing where you were. And if you can read 5-10 minutes, fantastic. And if you can't, just don't forego that. Like, pick up the book, take a look. Okay, here's where I was last night. It's not happening tonight. I've succeeded. Because that's a whole different story than getting to the end of the week and saying I didn't get any reading done and I'm terrible. I'm failing at my, changing my habits. So
Right.
start there, no matter what it is. 1 minute, 30 seconds. Just do it every day. Make a commitment to yourself about it, and give yourself some hall passes too, because you can have a hall pass once or twice here and there. But if you set that habit, next thing you know, you'll be doing 10, 15 minutes very often.
Yeah. I love it.
I would also just say, let it meet you where you're at too. If there's something specifically that you're struggling with, then there's a table of contents. There are great resources that are going to direct you to something that's really going to like help you with whatever issue you are experiencing or you want more information on, if it's sleep, if it's food addiction, if it's stress. So let it meet you where you're at. Sometimes people get so stuck on like element 2 or 3 because, sometimes they've got a lot of other things going on. So allow yourself to skip around from time to time to keep yourself engaged. And that helps me a lot.
Oh, that's good.
Something
That
else
is really. Oh, go for it.
Sorry. I was just going to say, in the pickup line, when you're picking up the girls from school,
Oh, yeah.
that's where I do most of my reading, because I leave so early, and it's usually my kids fall asleep in the 5-7 minute drive to the school.
Right.
So they're quiet, or I have them with the headphones and watching a movie.
Right.
But that's been my only time, because in the mornings it's chaotic, in the evenings it's chaotic, and then I don't really feel like doing much of anything after they go to bed. I'm like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
So that's when I found that it's the easiest for me. Like, there's times I live close enough to where I can walk them to school, so that gets me my activity. But then in the afternoon, I pick them up and I am reading either my life book. I bring my Bible with me. I'll do a verse out of there. I don't want to do the life book. There's times when you just feel overwhelmed with everything. So
Right.
then you just go ahead and pick whatever book you want, or take some time and just close your eyes and take it all in too. There's times when I just need to reflect on the day and be like, okay, what is going on? Is there, just to kind of de-stress a little bit, because I can imagine having a toddler at home.
Yeah.
Because I know you.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a toddler grandson, and it's just like, oh my gosh, that boy
Full
can
throttle.
come out.
Right.
So, but definitely try and do something like that when you're picking up the girls from school, because it's when I find to be the easiest for me to be the least amount of distractions.
It's a great idea. Yeah.
That's a super great tip. Way to multitask too. Those pickup lines are like insane. So kudos to you guys who are all stuck in them. I love that. So the introduction, and Ashley, I actually want to touch on what Ashley said. She hit the nail on the head, because there are a lot of folks that they're like, no, but I have to be linear. I have to read like elements 1 through 26 in order. You do not. Granted, the first few elements really set the foundation, and doing this book club will also help us get through it in a very linear way. But there are definitely elements there that you just need in the moment. I tell people all the time, element 23, I have a love-hate relationship with. It's a powerful element. It's all about mastering our thoughts and emotions. But there are certain ones that you just need to read sooner than later. And just talk to your coach about it. If there's something going on, or look at the table of contents and look up something that's kind of relevant to your life that you're experiencing, I guarantee there's something in the life book that he'll touch on that will help. I want to be mindful of time, and I just want to do kind of some wrap up housekeeping. Love that you guys were all on here. So just to be clear with the cadence of how we're doing the book club. So we did the introduction of the life book this week. Next week will be the Habits of Health book. And then we will go back to the life book 2 weeks from today. So every week you'll have 2 weeks to read a chapter of the life book, which is actually the cadence that Dr. Anderson wrote it. It's not like a race to the finish line. He really wants us to read through it, digest the information, journal in there, like he talked about. And then that way you're getting the most out of it. So next week will be the first chapter of the Habits of Health book. And then 2 weeks from today, it will be the life book. Now, with that being said, I don't want you guys to shy away from participating from the life book, even when we get to topics that maybe are a little bit more challenging, because there's some parts in here where you're like, oh, I don't want to answer that question. That's really vulnerable. I want you guys to know that this is completely a safe space for all of us to share. And the reason why we want to do this is because we're more alike than we are different. And although maybe some of our personal issues can be a little different, it can resonate with a lot of folks in different ways. So we want you guys to be able to share so that we can talk as a group and work through it. And like I mentioned earlier, depending on the size, we may do breakout sessions to have just smaller, more intimate groups. That way everyone has an opportunity to share, given time restraints.
And bring a friend next time. And everybody, honestly, if you're on here, coach, client, whatever, maybe make a comment on the live video stream. You just never know. You might be helping someone else. They're going to see it just because we interacted with it. And this was great turnout for a first one. But, I think we could have like 100 people on here next week. So tell your friends.
Yes, that would be awesome. I completely agree. Even if they're not on program, honestly, they may get some value out of it. So the more the merrier. It's not totally restricted. So I love the open invitation for everyone. Outside of that, any other last thoughts or questions or feedback before we wrap up for the evening?
Okay, so Habits of Health. What pages is the first chapter? Because it seems like
That's a really great question.
The pages.
We're going to end up doing pages.
Oh, here's Rocks, Pebbles, Sand.
We're going to be doing the pages 16 through, well, it's going to be really tiny. It's going to be 16 through 20.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, because the next section's a little bit bigger. So we'll take it in little smaller increments. And I think that's better anyway. That way it gives everybody the opportunity to share their takeaways. And it's like 5 pages of reading versus like 20 pages of reading. So bite-sized chunks. Great question. Any other questions or final thoughts? Yay. Well, thanks again, you guys, for participating. So glad you were on. Oh, hi, Nicole. I just saw your face on there. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you next Monday, same time, same place. Have a great week, you guys. Bye.
Thank you for all your work.
You bet. Bye, everyone.